This is the other part of that small engine video yesterday. We talked about the different types of engines, 4-cycle and 4-stroke and 2-stroke engines. I told you I was going to show you some car engines so you can see that a little bit more detail what goes on with this type of engine. Got 3 cars represented here, all the 3 major car companies here. I got Ford, Chrysler, it's a Dodge, it's a division of Chrysler there, and Chevy, which is a division of GM, so those are the major car companies right there. This one here, I'll start with this one here. This is a Ford with a, as you can see, there's a 4-cylinder. We talked about different cylinders. The ones that we looked at yesterday was a single cylinder, just 1 piston, 1 cylinder. This one's got 4, you can see right here. These are coils. We looked at spark plug yesterday, but there's a spark plug underneath these coils in this particular engine, so you can't see the spark plug. So that's how you can tell this is a 4-cylinder engine. All those are pushing down on that crankshaft, which is oriented this way. And if you looked on, we talked about how engines are cooled. Those small engines are cooled by air. This one is cooled by fluid running through the engine. It's cycled through, and it goes through this radiator, which is back in here. And you can see there's fans in here that help cycle air through. So the water, the fluid that's hot, comes out of the engine, and it cycles. We'll see that better on the other one. It cycles through this radiator underneath here, back and forth, back and forth. You drive it, it's back in, it takes the heat away again. And that's all driven off of the pump. So on this side of the engine here, you can see there's pulleys and there's a belt, and that drives some of the systems on the engine, like the water pump, which is one of them, as well as a few others. It's kind of hard to see on this engine here, but there's a battery over here. We said for starting an engine, you can either do it by pulling it to get that cycle started, or you can have an electric motor that starts that, and that's powered by this battery here. And that's kept charged by something called an alternator, which is kind of hard to see all that on this engine. But on the top here, we've got these little symbols that tell us what this is for. There's a little oil can there. Tells you what kind of oil goes in there. So that's where you would, if you have to add oil, that's where you'd add it right there. This requires SAE 5W20, which is a type of weight oil. W stands for winter, and the other numbers are for viscosity, weight and viscosity. And then to check the oil, any car you're going to see a yellow thing like this. This is a dipstick, so you pull that out, you wipe it off. The car should be nice and level when you do it, so that you get a good reading and obviously not running. And then if you look at the dipstick closely, you'll see there's a couple little dots there, and there's like hash marks in the middle. So when I dip that back in now, I want to see that that oil is in between those 2 hash marks. If it's down below that, it needs oil, or if it's above it, it's too much. So let's check that. Now we put it back in, pull it back out again, and we can see the oil right there. See, the oil is good. And the oil condition is a little black, but not too bad. That's how you check the oil on a car, like that. All right, let's show you more on these other engines here. Let's go over to this one. So this one is a V6. So what that means is there are 3 cylinders here, or 3 pistons and cylinders, and 3 on this side. And the V means that they move down in a V-type shape. And there's one big crankshaft down the middle that they're all pushing against and turning. This one happens to be a 3.6 liter engine. Those measurements on engines, like that one I think is a 2.4, measures how much volume of space is in the cylinders. So if you have, let's say you have 1 cylinder, the space that's in there with the piston already down, you measure that space, you measure the volume, you measure it in liters. Let's say it measures out to be 1 liter of space. You multiply that by the number of cylinders. So if you have a 6-cylinder car, you multiply 1 times 6, you'd get a 6-liter car, which wouldn't be in a V6, but anyway, that's what that number means. Basically tells you the size of the engine. Okay, that one's a 2.4 liter. This one's 3.6. And sometimes it's measured in cubic inches. Liter is metric. Cubic inches is a standard English measurement. Same kind of systems here. We talked about the carburetor. Cars don't have carburetors. They have something similar to that, which is called fuel injection, but that air that goes in there that mixes with the fuel, it's going to be filtered, so you have a big filter here. This one you can see a little bit better. If you look down in here, you can probably see there's a fan here that when the car is going down the road, that air is going to go through the radiator and keep it cool. But when it's just sitting, you need a fan to cycle that air through to keep it cool. So that fan would be turning when the car is on and the engine is running. And there's lots of other little. This is the dipstick for the oil here on this one. Over here, well, these symbols tell you pretty much what it's for. This one is for the coolant, this liquid that cycles through and cools the engine. And this is the overflow tank, since when that gets hot, it expands and it goes into this tank, and then when it cools down, it sucks it back in there. So the level of that can be seen through here if you look at it from that side. You can see there's a red liquid. This one's not quite full, so it needs a little bit right there. Okay, so that's your radiator fluid, your coolant. And then over here, you probably recognize that symbol. Windshield washer fluid goes in there. You don't want to get your fluids mixed up. And there's another little fluid container here. This would be your power steering. It says right on there, power steering. Steering would be hard unless it was assisted by a hydraulic system to make it easier to turn. And then this one over here, way in the back here, is kind of an odd place for it, is your brake fluid. Brakes are hydraulic. They work off of hydraulic fluid, so you have to have fluid up to level in both of these containers. They're all different types of fluid. So this is our V6. And then over here, this is the big one. This one is a big V8. And you can see a little bit, actually quite a bit more on this engine. You can see what's going on from this side. This is the V8, so you can see actually where the spark plug wires are. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 on each side. V fashion, so it's a V8. 4 plus 4 on the other side. You can also see some of the other components, like the battery. This one actually has 2 batteries. It's got a battery here and an auxiliary battery over there. And those batteries are charged off of that. That's an alternator, which is, if you've watched the other video, we talked about electromagnetism. We talked about how generators work, and that's basically a generator. And that's turned off of this belt. So when the engine is running, this belt is powering off the engine and it's turning that alternator, so it's always charging the battery. And down below there you can see there's actually quite a few pulleys down there. The big pulley on the bottom is connected to the crankshaft of the engine, so that's the main pulley. And then coming off of that is this big belt, powers the alternator. This thing here is the power steering pump, so that assists the steering system with hydraulics. And on the other side there's a water pump. There's also air conditioning pump. So there's a lot that runs off that one belt off the engine here, right there. And then all the other same systems we talked about. This would be your brake fluid over here. And then this one has got the radiator fluid. You can see a little bit better right here. That's up to the correct level. The dipstick for the oil is right here. And then up in here, this thing is for the transmission fluids. An automatic transmission that has, well, they all do have fluid, and then they have to be checked. This one you can't really check unless the engine is running. You have to have it running, and it has to be somewhat up to temperature, and then you check it while it's running. But and then it's got the oil. This one takes a little bit different. This is 5W30, so every engine has different oil requirements. This one here, you can see too the hoses that cool the engine. This is the hose that comes out of the engine and into the radiator, big radiator, and it goes down, around, and it comes out down here as cool water, and it goes in there, and then, or cooler water, and then it cycles all through the engine, taking the heat away from it and then back out. So when it's going down the road, it's all staying nice and cool. All right, I think that's pretty much, I think we covered all the major systems on it. Like I said, this one's a V8. This one's a 6-liter, so it's a much bigger engine than those other two. But anyway, thank you.